$32 billion. That's how much Sam Bankman-Fried's empire was worth at its peak. And in just 11 days, every last cent of it vanished. November 11, 2022. In a luxury penthouse in the Bahamas, a 30-year-old man in cargo shorts stared at his screen. His customers were demanding $8 billion. Money he didn't have. Money that should have been there but wasn't. He had one option left. Tweet an apology and watch his empire crumble into dust. "I'm sorry. I messed up." Those were the words that ended the biggest fraud in cryptocurrency history. But how did a man who was called the next Warren Buffett fool everyone, from Sequoia Capital to Tom Brady to the entire crypto industry? The story begins in 2017, in a cramped apartment in Hong Kong. Sam Bankman-Fried, or SBF as he became known, was a 25-year-old MIT graduate who had just quit a lucrative job at the quantitative trading firm Jane Street. He saw something that others had missed. Bitcoin was trading at wildly different prices on different exchanges around the world. In South Korea, the price was sometimes 30% higher than in America. In Japan, another gap. This was free money for anyone fast enough to exploit the difference. With a small team of friends from MIT in his trading days, SBF founded Alameda Research. The name was deliberately boring, a hedge fund that traded crypto on the arbitrage. On good days, they were moving $25 million through these trades. Within a year, Alameda had made over $1 billion. Sam wasn't satisfied. He didn't just want to trade on crypto exchanges. He wanted to own one. In 2019, he launched FTX from the Bahamas. Why the Bahamas? It was a tropical tax haven with friendly crypto regulations and almost no oversight. The perfect place to build a financial empire without anyone asking too many questions. FTX grew at a pace that seemed impossible. By 2021, the exchange was handling billions in daily trading volume. It wasn't just a crypto exchange, it was becoming the center of the entire industry. That year, FTX raised $400 million from some of the most sophisticated investors in the world. Sequoia Capital, NEA, Paradigm. They valued FTX at $32 billion, making it one of the most valuable startups on earth. Sequoia's partner wrote glowingly about meeting SBF on a Zoom call. "I don't know how I know. I just know this guy is going to be a trillionaire." They would later have to delete that blog post. With hundreds of millions in venture capital, FTX went on a spending spree that would make any startup jealous. Super Bowl ads featuring Larry David joking about missing out on history. Naming rights to the Miami Heat's arena for $135 million. Celebrity endorsements flooded in. Tom Brady, Gisele Bündchen, Steph Curry, Shaquille O'Neal. They would all later be named in lawsuits by FTX customers who lost everything. SBF himself became a media darling. He appeared on magazine covers. He testified before Congress. He met with regulators who saw him as a responsible voice in the Wild West of crypto. His net worth peaked at $26 billion. He cultivated a carefully crafted image. The messy hair. The cargo shorts. The sleeping on a beanbag at the office. He claimed to be an effective altruist who would donate most of his wealth to charity. He donated millions to political campaigns on both sides. Everyone bought the story of the idealistic young genius. Nobody asked the obvious questions. Like why a hedge fund and an exchange run by the same person needed to exist separately. Or where all the money was really going. Because behind the scenes, the situation was catastrophic. FTX and Alameda Research were supposed to be separate companies with separate finances. In reality, they shared everything. Alameda had a secret backdoor into FTX's systems that allowed it to borrow unlimited amounts of customer funds. No questions asked. When Alameda's risky trades went bad, and they often did, they didn't cover losses with their own money. They simply took it from FTX customers. Billions of dollars that people had deposited on the exchange, thinking it was safe, was being gambled away on high-risk trades. At one point, Alameda had borrowed at least $8 billion from FTX customer accounts. $8 billion. Money that was supposed to be available for customers to withdraw at any time. Instead, it was propping up a failing hedge fund. The house of cards began to fall on November 2, 2022. CoinDesk, a crypto news site, published an article that would change everything. They had obtained Alameda's balance sheet. What they found was stunning. Alameda's assets were largely made up of FTT tokens, a cryptocurrency that FTX had created out of thin air. This was like discovering that a bank's reserves were made up entirely of IOUs that the bank had written to itself. The article raised a simple question: was Alameda actually solvent? Or was it surviving on a foundation of imaginary money? Changpeng Zhao, known as CZ, the CEO of Binance, FTX's biggest rival, saw an opportunity. On November 6, he announced on Twitter that Binance would sell all of its FTT holdings. About $500 million worth. The announcement was a death sentence. It signaled that the largest crypto exchange in the world had lost confidence in FTX. And when confidence disappears in finance, everything else follows. What happened next was a classic bank run. Customers rushed to withdraw their funds from FTX. In 72 hours, they requested $6 billion in withdrawals. FTX processed the first waves, but the money quickly ran out. On November 8, FTX halted withdrawals. Customers who had trusted the exchange with their life savings were suddenly locked out. The panic turned to rage. SBF desperately searched for a bailout. In a twist of irony, he reached out to Changpeng Zhao, the same rival whose tweet had started the bank run. CZ initially agreed to consider acquiring FTX. But after looking at FTX's books for less than a day, Binance walked away. The hole was simply too big. Tens of billions of dollars were missing, and no one could explain where they went. On November 11, 2022, FTX filed for bankruptcy. It was the largest collapse in cryptocurrency history. Over 1 million creditors lost access to their funds. The new bankruptcy CEO was John Ray III, the same man who had unwound the Enron bankruptcy 2 decades earlier. After reviewing FTX's operations, he made a stunning statement. "Never in my career have I seen such a complete failure of corporate controls." Coming from the man who cleaned up Enron, that was saying something. FTX had no board of directors. No proper accounting system. Some expenses were reportedly approved by emoji in group chats. The company used QuickBooks, accounting software meant for small businesses, to manage billions of dollars. The money trail revealed even more troubling details. FTX had spent $300 million on real estate in the Bahamas. Company funds were allegedly used to buy personal property for employees and their family members. SBF's parents, both Stanford law professors, had received a $16 million house in the Bahamas. His brother, Gabe, ran a political action committee that received millions from FTX. The lines between personal and company funds had completely disappeared. Exactly 1 month after the bankruptcy filing, Sam Bankman-Fried was arrested in the Bahamas. He was extradited to the United States to face multiple federal charges: wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering, and campaign finance violations. The trial began in October 2023. What emerged was a picture of systematic fraud that went far deeper than anyone had imagined. Caroline Ellison, SBF's ex-girlfriend and the CEO of Alameda Research, testified against him. She had already pleaded guilty and was cooperating with prosecutors. Her testimony was devastating. She described how SBF had directed her to take billions in customer funds from FTX. She described secret spreadsheets tracking the theft. She described how they created fake financial documents to show to investors. Gary Wang, the co-founder of FTX and one of SBF's closest friends since high school, also testified. He described writing the code that gave Alameda its secret access to FTX customer funds. He told the jury about the culture of fraud that pervaded the company. Nishad Singh, another executive, described Alameda's mounting losses and how customer money was used to cover them up. The inner circle had all turned on SBF, each one cutting deals with prosecutors in exchange for their testimony. SBF took the stand in his own defense. He claimed he had made mistakes but had never intended to commit fraud. The jury wasn't convinced. On November 2, 2023, exactly 1 year after the CoinDesk article that started the collapse, the jury found Sam Bankman-Fried guilty on all 7 counts. In March 2024, he was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. The judge, Louis Kaplan, rejected SBF's claims of good intentions. He said the evidence showed a very substantial risk of recidivism and noted SBF's apparent lack of any remorse. So what can we learn from this disaster? First, due diligence matters even for the smartest investors. Sequoia Capital is one of the most respected venture firms in the world. They backed Google, Apple, and PayPal. Yet they invested based largely on a Zoom call where they found SBF impressive. They never discovered that FTX had no board, no CFO, and was sending customer money to a hedge fund. Second, charisma is not a substitute for governance. SBF's carefully crafted image as a nerdy idealist helped him avoid scrutiny. He talked about effective altruism while allegedly stealing billions. The image was so convincing that regulators, journalists, and investors all wanted to believe it. Third, when something grows too fast, ask why. FTX went from $0 to $32 billion in valuation in just 3 years. It offered higher yields than competitors. It grew faster than any exchange before it. These weren't achievements, they were warning signs. Fourth, separation of entities must be real, not just on paper. FTX and Alameda were supposed to be independent companies. In practice, they shared everything: offices, personnel, and most importantly, money. This conflict of interest was hiding in plain sight. The FTX collapse didn't just destroy one company. It shattered trust in the entire cryptocurrency industry at a critical moment. Regulators who had been warming to crypto became hostile. Other exchanges faced runs. Billions in value evaporated across the market. Millions of ordinary people lost their savings because they trusted the wrong person. And that's perhaps the most important lesson of all: in finance, trust must be verified, not assumed. No matter how impressive someone seems. Sam Bankman-Fried went from the cover of Forbes to a prison cell in just 18 months. His story is a reminder that even in the digital age, the oldest scam in finance still works: take other people's money and pretend it's yours. Eventually, the truth always comes out. If you found this breakdown valuable, subscribe and hit the bell for more business case studies and industry analysis.